Hello, I'm Nicole, and for my project I chose to focus on using games to help students with math instruction. I found when it comes to math, students tend to love it or hate it. In addition, I constantly get the question of, when am I ever going to use this? Over the past several years, I have found when it comes to math problems, students can do the ones that look just like the ones they have seen, but when the problem is a little different, the hands shoot up, with students claiming that they don't get it. In the digital age, I have found that students want answers and they want them yesterday. With that in mind, I decided to tackle a project that utilized games to help students learn the math material. When students are playing board games in my class, they are always very engaged and learn well. So with this unit, I wanted to take gaming to the digital level and incorporate more authentic uses of the math concepts the students are learning. As I was doing my research in the searching project, I found a really awesome site called GameStar Mechanic. What really drew me to the site was that there were so many options available. There are many different subscription options, including one that is free. There are also several other levels of subscriptions at various prices. Of course, only the premium package allows users to access all of the features, but the free option can get any teacher started. There are many levels of use. Teachers can use a lesson plan that have been created by others. They can create their own lesson plans or eventually use games that have been created by their own students. Students not only get to play the games, but they can edit games in order to fix them or even create games of their own. The site is user-friendly and makes students use higher order thinking skills. They are solving multi-step problems. The first lesson involves using a game that is created but can be edited to explore the concept of ratios, proportions, and percent. The students will be using a printed worksheet to locate definitions, examples, and problems to focus on as they are going through the lesson. The basic idea is that students will be looking at the game to discover the ratios of enemies, obstacles, heroes, and various block types to determine if the game is fair and if they have fun while they are playing it. In order to use the site, teachers need to have computers with internet access and Flash 10 player installed. It would also be nice if the teacher has a smartboard, projector, or computer connection to a television so that they can model how to use the website as well as how to start the lessons. However, this is not necessary in order to use the site. It is important to realize that in order to do the lessons I'm about to describe, the teacher has a lot of preparations to do. First, the teacher will need to create an account of their own. It is really important for the teacher to spend a lot of time on the site before introducing it to their students. A lot of districts block certain websites, so make sure the website is not blocked or see if you can get access before trying to use the site in your own classroom. Make sure that you don't need parental consent or special permission of any sort. If you do, make sure to get approval. Create student accounts to make the first login go more smoothly. Both teachers and students need to complete the introduction quest in order to understand, play, edit, and create games. There are a lot of specific terms, so it is important to learn them and get acquainted with the keys required to move, jump, and shoot. The site itself is very easy to use. In any internet browser, you just type in www.gamestarmechanic.com and the screen you see here will appear. There are pages for both parents and teachers to get more information. The Get Started button on the top will help to create the first teacher account or bring up the login screen. Let's take a look at the first worksheet together. First, the students have to visit a website to find the definitions of the keywords used throughout the lessons. So you can see the website is here, along with the directions and the words that the students need to use. I really like the site required because it has more complex definitions for older grade levels as well as simplistic definitions for younger grade levels. I also like that there are several examples for each word. For example, let's go to the site and take a look at the word ratio. First, we need to click on grades 7 to 9. If you would like, you can click the R to get to ratio and select the word. Notice that the definition is right here. This is more of a complex definition. There are different applets here to show what the different ratios can be. And there are many examples as you scroll down the page, which will also help. After the students are looking at the definition, there are several problems that the students need to solve, which means that there is going to be some instruction before this lesson about how to use these ratios. As you look through the rest of the worksheet, it then tells you to sign into GameStar Mechanic and go to the workshop. Get a copy of Change the Element template, and they will use that template to answer the questions below. Let's preview those questions because we won't be answering them when I take you to the site. It says that before you edit anything, you're supposed to find certain ratios. Enemies to heroes, damage blocks to regular blocks, health to enemies, enemies to damage blocks of health. As you keep going down, it will ask you some questions about writing ratios. However, as you get towards the bottom of the page, it asks you to do some editing as well. Now imagine that you're going to adjust the number of enemies and the number of obstacles, and also you wanted a time limit on the level. Write 3 possible ratios of enemies to seconds. Make up any reasonable numbers you want, but try to make very different ratios. You do not need to reduce these ratios. Try the game with the ratios that you wrote. Which one do you think makes for the best game? In complete sentences, explain why you think it is best. This type of questioning asks students to really apply what they are learning to make a very specific game. There are more questions as you go down the worksheet as well that ask these similar types of questions, including ones about proportions. If you raise the ratio by multiplying by 2 or 3, would the game still be as fair? Now we're going to go to the website. When students go to this website, they will see this page. They need to click the Get Started button, and the logon screen will come up. I created a sample student account to make sure I could see exactly what the students saw. I've used the password and username in the Blackboard if you'd like to explore as well. When the students sign in, here is what they will see. In order to do the quest, you will need to click this button right here. This button here goes to games that have already been created, and this button here will help us to get to the assignment that we are about to work on. As you get to the workshop, you can go down on the page, and here is the Change the Element game that the students need. It says Special Sprite Access. This game contains characters that you do not own, but you can use them in this game as much as you want. In the quest, students will gain different heroes, enemies, and other things, which are all called the sprites. Here is what the game looks like. These are damage blocks. These are enemies. Here is me. And here is the goal block. The first thing that I would need to do in order to do the worksheet is to count the number of blocks to find the specific ratios. Right now it's in edit mode. If I click up here, it will allow me to play. What I need to do is use the arrow keys to try to make it to the goal block. I have completed level 1. I can opt to replay or edit the game. When I edit the game, I can add the health meter, I can add damage blocks, I can add enemies, as well as add heroes. And that is what I'm going to be asked to do. In the edit mode, I can move things and put damage blocks in other places. I can move all of the blocks. But I really want to make sure that I keep the game as fun as possible and keep it challenging as well. It's fun to play around with, and I strongly suggest you do so before you ever let your students do this. The first lesson asked us to edit a game that was already created. However, the second lesson uses the same site but requires that students create their own game using specific ratios. These ratios can be created by the teacher or the students themselves. In other words, teachers could give the students the ratio, saying that there needs to be a ratio of enemies to heroes. There should be 10 enemies to 1 hero. There should be 6 damage blocks to every 20 regular blocks, and things like that. So the teachers could give this as an assignment. Or teachers could instead have students create ratios and change the ratios with other students, so the students are actually doing the work themselves. Teachers should make sure that they create a rubric for students to follow. There needs to be a minimum criteria in order for students to do this. Regardless of the method, whether the teacher creates the ratios or the students do, discussions about the ratios need to be discussed as they relate to the difficulty of the game. After students have created their games and played games of others, we need to talk about how the games worked and which ones were better, why they were worse, and really discuss this in terms of ratios, rates, proportions, and percents, and so on. There are several advantages to using this site. First of all, it can be very motivating for students. It also applies the math concepts in a real way. People actually use ratios in order to create games. A game may not be as fun if the ratios are not correct. It allows for creativity since students can create their own games, or they can edit games in any way that they want. These websites can be accessed from any location that has a computer with internet access and Flash Player 10. It also focuses on multiple concepts at once. Students can work at their own pace, and you can differentiate for different types of students if you need to. One of the best things about this site is that it allows for trial and error throughout the lesson. As students try their creations, they will see whether they work or don't work immediately, which has immediate feedback for students. Although there are many advantages, there are also several disadvantages. It can be costly to access the majority of the materials if you need the premium membership. It requires a lot of time since students need to set up accounts and work through introduction quests before they can do any lessons that are specific to your class. Some students may have no interest in playing games, and this would not appeal to them. The site tends to reinforce concepts and apply them, but it doesn't explicitly teach them. Teachers are required to do a lot of work beforehand to get everything ready and to learn how to use the site themselves. This site could be blocked and may require special permission, or it may not be allowed at all. Many people have to get parental consent for the students to use the site. However, I believe the benefits far outweigh the drawbacks. This site can be used in multiple grade levels and subject areas. The site is intended for students in upper elementary school through freshman year of high school. However, they can also use this in other grades, but it may need to be altered. There are many games that are created for multiple subject areas as well as different grade levels for other teachers to explore. Teachers in all subject areas can create their own games and lessons, which would make it specific for their class. There are many resources that are shared and can be used at various grade levels and content areas. If you look through the site, there are many different places that students can look and many different things that students can use and teachers can utilize as well. That is the end of my project, and I really hope that you enjoyed